My name is Caleb, and when I was 9, my parents gave me an old boxy CRT television for my room. It had a built-in VHS player and a set of chunky silver dials for changing channels. We lived out in the sticks, and the only thing we got without the cable box was static, save for one station, Channel 5. It was a local affiliate that played syndicated sitcoms during the day and old black and white movies late at night. I loved it. The signal was always a little fuzzy, the picture softly dancing with grey snow, but it was mine. The unease started on a Tuesday. I'd fallen asleep watching a Marx Brothers movie and woke up around 2 a.m. to the hiss of static. The movie was over. Groggily, I reached out and turned the dial from Channel 5 to, well, it should have been static, but it wasn't. It was a living room, not a show. No studio lighting, no laugh track, just a dim, real-looking room, filmed by a single, stationary camera. It was a living room from the late 80s, maybe early 90s. Avocado green carpet, wood-paneled walls, a plaid sofa. A floor lamp cast a weak orange circle of light on an empty armchair. The picture had the same faint fuzz as Channel 5, but it was unmistakably a live feed. I stared, thinking it was some strange infomercial or experimental broadcast. Nothing happened for 10 minutes. Just that empty room. I finally switched it off and went back to sleep, chalking it up to a weird dream. The next night, curious, I tuned in again after the late movie ended. Same channel, past the static notch. The room was there again. This time, the armchair was slightly askew, as if someone had just gotten up. A paperback book lay face down on the seat. I felt a chill, a wrongness. This wasn't broadcast television. This was a feed. I got up and checked my parents' TV in the living room. Their Channel 5 was just static. I went back to my room. The feed was still there. Over the next 2 weeks, it became a dreadful ritual. I'd watch. The room would change in tiny, almost imperceptible ways. A coffee mug would appear on a side table, then be gone the next night. A shadow would pass across the far doorway, never entering the frame. The camera never moved, never panned. It just watched that room. I stopped sleeping well. I'd lie awake, thinking about that stationary eye, watching an empty room in what felt like real time. I told my dad, who humored me and came to look. He turned the dial through the static, shrugged, and said, "See? Nothing. You've got an imagination on you, kiddo." On his dial, it was nothing. On mine, when I turned it back after he left, the room was still there. A new detail. The book on the chair was now closed and placed neatly on the side table. The horror wasn't in what I saw, but in the implication. Someone was living in that room, and someone was filming it, constantly. And for some reason, my television, and only my television, was tuned to it. The climax was slow, silent, and it broke me. One night, the armchair was perfectly centered in the frame. Sitting in it, in profile, was a man. He was just sitting, still. He was wearing a faded brown cardigan. He didn't read, didn't watch a TV, I couldn't see. He just sat, staring at the wall across from him, his face a blur of pixels in the low light. My blood turned to ice. I wasn't watching a show. I was a voyeur. Or worse, he was aware he was being watched. He sat there, unmoving, for the entire hour I dared to watch. The next night, he was there again. This time, his head was tilted slightly, as if listening. Not to something in his room, but to something else. On the third night he appeared, I gathered my courage. The room was dark, only the faint glow from the hallway illuminating his silhouette. He was standing now, facing away from the camera, towards the hallway door. He was perfectly still. Then, with a slowness that was agonizing, he began to turn his head. Not his body, just his head, a slow rotation over his shoulder. He was turning to look at the camera, at me. I didn't wait. I yanked the power cord from the wall. The next day, I dragged the TV out to the curb for trash pickup. I never saw the feed again, but sometimes, late at night, when the house is silent, I think about that slow, deliberate turn. I think about the fact that the camera was in his room, and I have this unshakable cold thought. If I was receiving his feed, what or who was he receiving on his?